Every time I think there's nothing left to foreclose in Cuyahoga County, I'm proven wrong. These foreclosures have moved from the subprime market, which we've talked about here, to the Alt-A loans, and now with a worsening economy, we've moved into the prime rate mortgages as well as people begin to lose their jobs. I talked about this last year. I'm going to touch on these piece points quickly. I know that we're on the radio, so I really, for the folks listening, I'm sorry you can't see what I'm about to point to, but the first map on your left was done by the County Planning Commission. Is that your left? Yeah, your left. It's the one that was, it shows the number of foreclosures in Cuyahoga County over a 36-month period, basically November of 05 through December of 08, 37-month, 42,600 dots. And as you can see from those dots, there is not a single area in this county that's unaffected by this foreclosure epidemic. The map a little further to your right there is the map of the 44105 zip code, comprised of basically wards 12, 2, 3, and it's the area that was the epicenter of the meltdown in Cuyahoga County, the area known as Slavic Village, and to the points east. Quickly, let's go over some of the statistics. We estimate that there are approximately 35,000 vacant properties now in Cuyahoga County. We estimate that there are 15,000 properties either condemned or waiting condemnation. There are at least 100,000 fewer people living here than were living here 10 years ago. And that is the largest population loss of any county in the country, with the exception of New Orleans Parish, and they had Hurricane Katrina in September of 2005. The census figures, I am told, will show in 2010 that Cleveland's population will have lost about 100,000 people. Maybe optimistic, it may be a little high, but there were 470,000 people living in the city in the 2000 census. And one demographer who recently visited me at the county actually said she put the number at 350 in 2010. It's useless to speculate, but the population declines in the central city will be significant. We can only guess as to how many Greater Clevelanders are going to be filing for property tax reductions this year. But we know, based on the early filings, the number will be in the tens of thousands. We have received so many requests for property tax reductions early on that we've had to add 2 additional boards. I chair the Board of Revision. It's a 3-person board comprised of a representative of the commissioners, representative of the treasurer, and the auditor. We've typically kept 3 boards, but as I said, the demand is so great, we've had to add 2 additional boards to take these complaints. The impact on local governments and schools will be very harsh. Of course, it depends on the community, but let's talk about Cleveland. In Cleveland, every percentage point of loss in property value will cost the city's general fund $1 million and cost the schools $300,000. Now, not every community in Cuyahoga County has been that adversely affected. Some communities, especially the outer ring suburbs, are hanging on, and in fact, I think you might have seen the survey recently in the Plain Dealer that showed that a couple of those communities actually gained a little bit in value. So it's not all gloom and doom, but in the city and in the inner ring suburbs, especially east of the city, the consequences of this foreclosure, the cataclysm will be inevitable. Before I discuss the land bank, I'd like to just spend a few minutes on, I know it was what was titled in the program here. I want to spend a little bit of time on President Obama's measures, then I want to get into the land bank. As you know, the President recently announced a foreclosure relief plan. The Bush administration, which I've been critical of in the past, had a response to this crisis that we thought was rather unique. They partnered with banks and actually some very reputable national organizations in creating a program called the Hope Now Alliance. And you saw the billboards all over town. You'd hear the PSAs about calling 1-888-HOPE-NOW. We kidded in the foreclosure movement, and there are many people here from foreclosure prevention groups. We used to call it Hope Maybe or Hope Never, based on just how this program was working. What you do is you call the 888 number. By the way, the number's still up there, and they're directing people to it as we speak. The line would be the 888 line would take callers from all over the country. I think there are 4 call-in centers spaced around the country where homeowners facing foreclosure call in. They talk to a counselor who supposedly works the homeowner through the foreclosure and the mediation process, and in theory, they modify that mortgage and save the homeowner from foreclosure. And by golly, they did it. For thousands of people, they modified mortgages, and they saved the homeowner from foreclosure. But there was one minor problem with the Hope Now Alliance, and that is that, you remember, when somebody called that number, they called it because they were in foreclosure. And they called that number because they couldn't afford their monthly payment. Better than 50% of the loan modifications done through that program resulted in a higher monthly payment. Well, think about it. If you couldn't afford the lower monthly payment, how did you expect them to make the second larger payment? These loan mods were driven by the banking industry, with all due respect to them. They refused to accept the fact that they were going to take some losses on these mortgages, even in cases where the property had been overappraised and overmortgaged. They told the borrower in the program, look, we'll save your home. We'll just roll in those missed payments and the penalties and the interest and fees into a new mortgage, and we'll start over. And if you were facing the loss of a home, you would agree to that larger monthly payment. Not surprisingly, the redefault rate on these mortgages with the higher monthly payments is in excess of 70%. President Obama's plan is far more hopeful. I think will save many more Americans from foreclosure, but it is flawed in a significant way. I'm a partisan, but I'm still going to tell you it's flawed and what I think needs to be done to correct it, and I'm hoping the policymakers will make this correction. The two groups of homeowners who are going to be helped by this, there are two groups of homeowners that will be helped by the plan. The first is the group of homeowners who are current on their mortgage, but would like to take advantage of the new, lower fixed-rate mortgages being offered. The problem is the mortgage is underwater. They probably owe more than the house is worth. And it's not unusual given the fact that 1 in 4 mortgages in this country today, it's estimated 1 in 4 mortgages is underwater. It's mortgage for more than the value of the property. This program is not for speculators. It's not going to be for landlords. It has to be for owner-occupied structures. The borrower has to have sufficient verifiable income to support the debt, and the mortgage cannot exceed 105% of market value. As I said, landlords and speculators, you're out of luck. And if you're one of those people that took out a loan in this town between 2003 and 2006 from a company called Argent Mortgage, where there's a very good chance you borrow twice or maybe 3 times the value of your property, this option does not apply to you either. And that's true. As you know, Argent Mortgage, I talked about it in the first talk I gave here, was a company that had made no loans here up till 2002. They started making loans in 2003. They were a subsidiary of AmeriQuest. They made more loans than any other company in their first year. They were also leading the county in foreclosure rates, and their loan pool is the worst I've ever seen. So if you're any one of those folks, you fall in those categories, you're out of luck, but if you are one of those folks that has been making their payment and you also, your loan has to be guaranteed, one of those guaranteed by 2 of the GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you are eligible. The people, and there are housing counselors in the room, I know Jeannie Morton is here from CHN, and our friends from ESOP are here. People who are the housing counselors who do the heavy lifting, don't think this option is going to apply to many people in Northeast Ohio. The second part of the President's plan is known as the Home Affordable Modification Plan. I think it will have more traction here, and I think it's going to help more homeowners who are struggling to make their payments, and there are folks who either have been hit with an arm reset or about to be hit with an arm reset, and they're paying more than 31% of their gross monthly income. This program is going to incentivize servicers to reduce that payment. Let's say somebody's paying 50 and 60% of that gross monthly income to a mortgage. It's going to incentivize servicers to bring that number down to 31% for a 5-year stabilization period, and then allow the payment to increase gradually to no more 1% annually and to no more than the Freddie Mac mortgage market survey rate. The loan modification is so great that they won't be able to service the debt adequately. They're empowered to take the amortization rate and push it back out to a 40-year mortgage. Now, there are a lot of deals, but that's really a lot of details, but that's not why I'm here. There are a lot of nuances, and you can get those either by calling the office, our office, the County Foreclosure Prevention Office, which is 216-443-7461. But if you want to go online, it's a great site. It's www.financialstability.gov. And I'd suggest if you have questions, you go to that site. So what's wrong with the President's plan? There's nothing in the plan to pay for housing counselors who will assist borrowers and guide them through the process. This plan assumes that banks and servicers are going to call their borrowers or at least prepare their folks with adequate training. Let me read an email from Mark Seifert, who was the executive director of ESOP. I know he's not here, but his folks are here. He's a very large and successful housing foreclosure counseling agency that does foreclosures all over the state. He emailed me when the plan came out. He said, I like the plan, but he's afraid one of 3 things will happen.